One day I actually got a phone call that said, you look a little different than all of the previous AOA presidents, meaning that there had never been a female before, and said, would you ever consider going on tour and just visiting all the schools and colleges of optometry? So it kind of started as a brainstorming idea. The Dori 2020 tour was born out of kind of a conversation about how can we reach out to students. And so the process of it was that I would visit all of the schools and colleges of optometry, which there are 20 of them, over a 20-month time span. And so that's what started. I started at Pacific University, my alma mater, and I finished at The Ohio State University in May. And so it's been an adventure.
Wow. So tell me, do you know how many cups of coffee you drank and how many planes you boarded? And
No, I don't. I should do that. I should go back and count. I could at least tell you how many planes I was on in order to get to do the tour. The main goal was to raise a level of awareness about being involved in our profession. I mean, that was really the bottom line about it, because people take for granted sometimes what happens and don't realize that we're such a legislative profession that every decision that's made in Washington D.C. or at any of the state legislators can have an adverse effect on how we get to practice as optometrists. Mm-hmm. And as healthcare reform is evolving, it's even more important than ever to make sure that we're at the table representing optometry. It's about being involved in our profession and making sure that we leave our profession better than the way we found it. Mm-hmm. The students were absolutely amazing and very receptive. And I tried to make it fun. I tried to make it conversational. I didn't have a script. I tried to make it motivational. I tried to make it about patient care as well as being a professional, being a doctor, and being part of our profession. The students were incredibly receptive, and it really was a highlight of my president and president-elect years. I met so many incredible students. I actually had a student who told me that she intended to be the president of the AOA one day. So I will hold her to that and remind her of that now as she progresses through school.
Cool.
When people realized the history of our profession and realized where we came from, because I tell the stories of how we started with diagnostics and how we changed from being just a purely refraction profession to diagnostic profession where people could actually do tonometry, where you could actually dilate somebody's eyes, to then becoming a therapeutic profession, and then advancing it into Kentucky just recently passed their law about being able to use laser for treating patients. When you tell those stories about how the profession has evolved, I think more the light bulb went off about I had no idea. I just assumed that this was what optometry was and that, it has always been this way and that I didn't need to be involved necessarily. So I think I saw a level of, you're right, we need to be involved. We are a family. We need to be part of this family to protect our profession because nobody else cares about our profession. We're so small when we compare us to the grand scheme of healthcare. And when you compare us to insurance companies, optometry is such a small little piece of the pie that it's easy to get lost. Mm-hmm. And unless we make people pay attention to us and keep us included in all the things that happen, I think I saw that revelation more than anything.
Wow. Do you think that we would be better off if more people did a little bit or less people did more?
I think we would be absolutely far better off if everybody did a little bit, because that way, think of the things that we could do. Think of all the amazing things we could accomplish if everybody was a member of our association. We have 20 employees in the Washington D.C. office that all they do is monitor federal legislation and lobby for optometry on Capitol Hill every single day of the year. If we had everybody contributing their dues dollars or their time or their effort, think of all the amazing things that we could do. We've done some amazing things. Think of what else we could accomplish.
Wow.
So our big issue is that we've lost people when they've graduated. And it's not for lack of wanting them to join. I think a lot of new graduates think that somebody's going to come to them. And we actually make them work to find us. Mm-hmm. Kind of strange set of circumstances. And so certainly one of the take-homes that I've been talking to all of the states about, my board about, is the fact that we have to have an easier method to join. If they could join on their smartphone, people would join.
Yeah.
It just has to remove some of the barriers. And so certainly I've been one of the proponents for those types of changes as our association. If there was something that I learned about myself with the tour is perhaps stamina. One of the things that was probably the most exhausting things to do was the school tours, because I would start at 8 o'clock in the morning and oftentimes I wouldn't end till 9 o'clock at night. because I'd do a tour of the schools, sit with the administration, sit with the school leaders or some of the elected leaders of the school leadership. I'd sit with faculty, and ultimately I would do the student event. And so we joked about the fact that those days were exhausting, but exhilarating at the same time.
Yeah, if you had every student in front of you again, and you were able to kind of deliver them one last message, what would it say? Because hopefully they'll all get to see this.
If there was one last thing, is that my challenge that it's been throughout the whole entire tour is to live your life as an exclamation, not an explanation, and to leave optometry a little better than the way you found it. The school tour was probably the best part of being president and president-elect. It was exhilarating, it was exciting, it was motivational for the students, I hope, and certainly for myself. And it was one of those moments where you felt like you were making a difference and making a connection. And I guess the biggest thing that I have too is that I'm proud of the students. I'm proud of the people who will be my colleagues. I'm proud of the difference that I know they're going to make. And I'm extremely proud of the fact that this past year we had 300 students that went to Congressional Conference. For the most part, paid their own way to be there. And so I think the future of our profession is in a really good place.